This
to Route
conference will now be recorded.
15 Enterprise Drive. The conference is now being recorded. And then
Sorry.
the 460 and Route 811 intersection improvements, which is being sponsored by the TPO. I think we're all familiar with that one out there. In Campbell County, Paul, if you want to jump in and talk about these, but they're kind of segments of Route 29, the southern, middle, and northern section safety improvements there.
Right.
And then we have another TPO sponsored project at Greenview Drive to Laxton Road, and those improvements would also include a sidewalk from Oakdale Circle to Wood Road, which pretty much extends along that whole segment there and a little bit beyond. And then in the city, the proposed roundabout at Wards Ferry Road and CVCC Campus Drive, intersection improvements along Candler's Mountain. Those are the ones in the TPO planning area. And then if you go down to the rural side in Appomattox, I know we have Gary on the line if you want to expand on the Lee Grant Avenue improvements. That one's being submitted, or that one has been submitted. Bedford County, Route 122 and 24 intersection safety improvements. And then 460 and Timber Ridge Road intersection improvements. That's also one being sponsored by the TPO. And then Campbell County passing land on 501. So again, these are all projects that have successful pre-apps that have been submitted. We're just asking for the technical committee's recommendation if if the localities move forward with an actual application.
Are there any questions? If not, can we get a motion to recommend?
Make a motion to recommend this project as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next is discussion on the long-range transportation plan. Who would like to take the lead?
Philip, is there anything you'd like to say?
Go ahead, Will. I'll chime in.
Okay. Do you want to? I can't share my screen. If you could.
Valerie, could you
Hold on,
help?
yeah. Yeah, just 1 second. I can get that for you.
While we're getting that set up, I was going to talk about, let me see here. I guess our agenda is to talk a little bit about the virtual town hall that we had on June 30th. And then we did have a meeting with Lynchburg here. And was that earlier this week? I can't track.
That was
time.
Monday, yeah.
The Monday? Okay. All the days are kind of running together, but I did want to talk about that conversation. And there was one potential major change that came out of that discussion that I'd like for the TTC to weigh in on with that. And then just with the constrained budget, I know we've sent requests to central office for a constrained budget number, and that's going to be whenever you're putting together a long-range transportation plan. That's the main part of the plan is having, for the constrained list, a number so we know what the constrained projects are. Now, I know that there are some changes on the state level. July 1st was kind of big date as we change into the next fiscal year. And so there's a lot of uncertainty there, and I'm sure with COVID and other issues as well. But just not hearing back from central office on that, I mean, I would be hoping that this meeting would be, we're showing the constrained list of projects here. But without that number, that's kind of a difficult thing to do. So we'll talk about the implications of that. But first off, the town hall, we held that on June 30th, like I said. If you go to connectcentralvirginia2045.com and click on engagement, we have everything there. We had a little promotional video that was played on community access channel. I know Scott and you, Philip, sent out a lot of information and sent out social media blasts with that video attached in there. The town hall itself, we did not have any comments. We provided a presentation of where we are in the project list. We directed people to the site. We have an online, I guess, interactive map of the plan, essentially, of the project list, which is at the core of what the plan is. And so I made a recording of that here. So if you weren't able to attend, you can click on this link and see the presentation. And we have the top 30 project lists here, and you can comment. Basically, you put in a project number, and then you type in your comment, hit submit. And then you can also provide general comments here. We had the town hall on June 30th. We didn't receive any comments on that town hall call. I think we had about 12 or 15 people on the call, but minus MPO staff, our staff, VDOT staff, and local staff. I know a couple of you were on the call. When you subtract them out, there might have been like one or two members of the public on. But we didn't receive comments there, and we have not yet received comments on the site itself. I need to check it again, but last time I checked, we didn't have comments here. So as Rick said in the call, I mean, these projects have been vetted through processes that, you know, the localities and VDOT and MPO and so forth. So I guess we weren't really expecting a lot of comments there. But that's what we have, the results on that. So if you have time to go on there and take a look at the project, I'll just show you briefly this project list here. The projects in red are the top 30 projects that have been ranked or scored so far. We did include in the yellow or orange projects that were evaluated, but were outside of the top 30. Some of those are pretty close. So, you know, if there's, again, if there's a project that is a high priority but didn't score in the top 30 or in the higher ranking areas, we do want to know about that so we can take a look at the project, see if we can enhance it in a way that will help it not only score better here, but also in Smart Scale. And we use the Google map because it can help with wayfinding a little bit. You can see, for instance, this location, you can see the different landmarks around it. And I clicked on this location for a very important reason. The conversation we had with Lynchburg staff, this project came up. It is part of the downtown streets or complete streets projects. It's a 41 block area. I think it was originally 51. I have it in my notes somewhere here, but it's over 40 blocks. Currently in the project list, these are combined. So all those blocks, all phases are combined into one project. So it's $57 million. It had a pretty good benefit score in the priority ranking. But with a cost like that, of the projects we evaluated, that's the fourth highest cost of the projects. And of the top 30, none of the projects in the top 30 are over 20 million, which again just shows with how we evaluated these with the benefit cost score, the projects that have good benefit and low cost are going to be the most cost effective, and they're going to score better. So the question here was, how do we address this project here? What we had talked about doing is taking this total project and breaking it up into pieces. So each project would have the same benefit score, but with a lower cost, those smaller pieces would score better and likely be in the top 30. I believe the phases were about 4 blocks at a time. And so we could, knowing how much it costs per block, that's a pretty easy calculation. If you broke that up, you would have 10 different projects all scoring pretty well, so that you would have a project that was not in the top 30 that would suddenly take up a third of the top 30. And that would be a pretty significant change to what we have here. Another option would be, what that I suggested was, we could look at the next few years and say, between now and the next update, we could expect, you know, a few of these segments moving forward. So we could keep this project together, but break off 2 or 3 segments of it. So we would have maybe 2 or 3 new projects in the top 30 with this approach, where we're breaking pieces off. That's a pretty big question. We had talked about it with Scott over email, and Philip, and with city staff. It was a good comment that they brought up. I think we had a good conversation. But it's a question I thought, you know, really needed to get some feedback from the TTC here.
Hey, Will.
Yes, David.
Hey, this is David with VDOT. I have a quick question about that. With the cost estimate, did you bring that over from the previous LRTP, or was that an updated cost? Because I know that phase 1 has been built and funded. That was $9.3 million. And then phase 2 is currently underway, is about 17 million. So
Okay.
Is that in addition to the 2 phases that are currently underway, or are those updated to reflect what still needs to be done?
I believe this is what still needs to be done.
Yeah, and David, those costs might have included like the water line work that we're doing at the same time. Those seem high for the total number of blocks.
They did. And this
I think
updated cost is purely for the streetscaping. It's not including any of the
right.
water lines.
Right,
So-
water and sewer would be paid for separately. So this would just be the streetscaping.
And is there anything else I missed from?
No,
my
I think you
description?
laid that out well. When we talked about it, I had not thought about how, you know, suddenly we would have 10 projects scoring very well and what that would do to the overall list. So I think your second thought is a good one. Let's look at how many phases we think we would actually do within this time frame, and maybe keep all those other ones together, and then it would score lower.
Yeah. With that set of projects, how is the city financing? How did they finance the first 2 phases? Was smart scale money involved, or
I
was
don't
that
think so. I think
just out
the
of the
city
CIP?
funded it, but you know what? I'm not involved with the day-to-day on that.
Okay.
Yeah, city Lynchburg CIP money.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ann, was that just a question, a follow-up on that? You know, the second option of splitting it up into different segments, suggesting kind of in a 5-year time frame, probably the maximum really we could hope for is probably 3 segments maximum in 5 years.
Yeah,
So,
I would think maximum.
So would the suggestion be to kind of work with, you know, the phases that Lynchburg already has in place, and looking at what's next, and breaking those off, and then leaving all of the other, say, whatever it is, 38 remaining blocks as one, which would automatically go to the vision list?
Right. Though I'm not sure we know what the phases are that would be next, because we've got a lot of moving pieces that determine that.
But that kind of idea of having, you know,
Yeah, have
2 to
3
3,
phases,
yeah, 3
not
phases,
10 phases,
yeah.
would make
Okay.
sense.
Okay.
And then in the 2050 plan, we can look at it again and add
Mhm.
3 more. Yeah.
Okay. Are there other opinions or comments on that?
We did actually remove a few of the Campbell Avenue phases, right? So it wouldn't be there's probably not a net difference. We're not kicking off another localities project if we're only adding 3 in, I believe.
Yeah. And with the Campbell Avenue projects, I know that that's something that we need to follow up with Rick on that.
Okay. But we kept the initial phases of those, but moved the later phases to the vision list.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
So hopefully it's kind of equals out actually.
Any and all of your unfunded projects can go to the vision list. The only projects that will go to the constrained list are those that are funded through your CIP, through Smart Scale, or any other funding stream. If there's a project that's not funded, it doesn't go to the constrained side. Everything goes to the vision.
Yeah. I mean,
Not funded as of today?
If it's not a currently funded project or if it's not set in your CIP, then the constrained list only identifies those projects that are funded in their current state. All other projects go to the vision list until they're funded, then they move to the constrained list.
Okay, so that might mean all of Campbell Avenue.
Yeah, we don't have, if we had CMAQ money or other funding streams, there's possibility that you could assign projects, you know, to the constrained list with those money. But under the current situation, with the way funding goes and the way the future forecasts are going to go at this stage, we're only including, well, it's not just a matter of including, only projects that are funded remain and have funding to them are in the constrained list. Everything else are vision list projects.
So I guess for us, we'd need to know in the city CIP, you know, what's allocated for that downtown, you know, project we're talking about. And from there, we'll be able to create those 3 phases.
Okay.
Thinking right?
Correct.
I mean, another part of with the LRTP, it's really set up to qualify you for federal funds. So that's another, you know, component of if a project is 100% funded through the local CIP, it's not quite as important. It's still good to have in the plan, obviously.
Well, if it's a road related project, which these would be, and it's funded through their CIP, we can show it in the constrained list as a funded project for that phase.
Okay.
The other projects have to be, the reason that they're placed in the vision side is so that you can apply for future funds. And it is acknowledged in the official TPO plan as a viable project that's gone through validation, justification, scoring, cost benefit, you know, prioritization, which makes it easier to transition to other funding streams. Once it's identified, then the next update or an amendment process, it will be amended to the constrained list side.
Okay. Yeah, and in terms of the constrained budget, I know different areas can do it differently. I know in the previous LRTPs I've worked on, we had the constrained was the total amount, and then we had the projects that we knew were funded and we had to keep in the constrained list because they had received funding. And then we had the total amount we could expect over the next 20 years. And so that remainder between what's funded and what we can expect over the next 20 years, that's where we put in non-funded projects in the constrained budget, the constrained list, to be funded in future applications. But if we're just having the constrained list be just projects that are funded, then we can just work off of the top 30 here and just basically have those lined up to slide in when there's an opening.
And it's likely we won't see a constrained budget until after October.
Okay, all right.
So from a conservative approach, the methodology, which I'm talking about with the, your constrained budget is identifying strictly that money that's been assigned to two projects. And those projects are absorbing that amount of money.
Okay.
And we can, based upon the last update process, we can fully expect to see less money available.
Yeah.
Through that side. And typically with the way our MPOs are set up, we're, again, outside of local governments doing revenue share or CIP work, there's no real additional money out there to assign to particular projects. We're strictly through a competitive funding program.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, if we can't expect to receive a constrained budget till after October, I mean, I think that what you're talking about then makes the most sense in terms of an approach.
And again, the key point to remember is just because it's in the vision side does not make it any less relevant.
Right.
You want to make sure that any and all of your projects are identified in the vision side. Your vision list could be 1,000 projects. Your constrained list may only be 20 or 30 projects that are funded that are within the funded program. Yeah. Your vision list is that list that you're working from in order to get those to the constrained side and are required to be in the long range planning document in order to, again, provide that justification that they've gone through that study effort.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me see if I can pull up. So the other piece, we have that project list. Okay, here we go. We want to get this to Scott and Philip, you as well, to review, as well as VDOT staff to review. We do have a draft plan together. I think you all have seen a couple of chapters from earlier on in this process. But I thought I'd just at least flip through this just super briefly, really high level, just kind of let you know what to expect at least on this. But we have 8 chapters. One of the things we were trying to do with this is keep the chapters themselves pretty streamlined, and then have the biggest part of the plan really be the project list chapter, that section of the plan. So I mean, with that, we've been talking about how Connect Central Virginia, it's a combination of those 3 plans: LRTP, Lynchburg Connectivity Study, and the rural plan. And we're pretty careful with the nuance of the language here of treating the LRTP. It's a component of Connect Central Virginia, but we also have these 2 other components here. And I know Scott really wants to emphasize that. So, executive summary talking about Connect Central Virginia 2045, the 2045 LRTP, Lynchburg Connectivity Study, and the role plan together. And then kind of some of the components of what makes this plan unique of, having these plans merged obviously is a pretty unique piece of this. The visioning list typically can just be a list of projects that are all just thrown together as one. And what we're doing here with this plan is the visioning list being a lot more refined than that, where we have, here's this list of higher priority projects that can easily slide into the constrained list of projects when they're ready. And having the rule projects broken out and have these different categories laid out with more guidance in there for those projects. User friendly, being, again, the chapters themselves are a little more streamlined, and the electronic version, I know Scott wanted to have it on, the My Sidewalk electronic version of the plan. And, chapter 1 is, as you can expect, the introduction. One of the things with this too is we do make references back to the 2040 plan. Sometimes LRTPs, they kind of forget completely about the last plan and just start completely over, but we wanted to mention the previous plan a few times and even mention a little bit about the 2050 plan. So there's a little bit more of a narrative of this is what we've done, this is what we're doing now, and this is where we're heading in terms of the MPO and the TPO and how we approach this plan. And went into all the different types of smart scale, fast act, VTrans, approved targets, local and regional plans, and how they came together to form the goals and performance measures. Going through each one of the chapters, it's probably a good way to review it actually, is the chapter 2 is going to be that's really straight from the Lynchburg Connectivity Study. That's kind of the Lynchburg Connectivity Study chapter, essentially, of how all this comes together. Chapter 3 is really just, documentation of the public engagement process. Existing and future conditions chapter, that you all have already seen this one several months ago. Demographics chapter, goals and performance measures. Yeah, all this stuff are things that you've already seen in all the PowerPoints as we've met over the months here. They're just those PowerPoints really transformed into chapters. So it's really nothing content-wise, nothing really new here. It's all things that we've been talking about. And the only exception maybe this chapter 2 of going through the goals and measures and how the Lynchburg Connectivity Study ties into the LRTP and how the rule plan ties into this as well, and how you have these 3 components all together. So that's, and also the different one-pagers from the connectivity study and how those elements got worked into the scoring methodology through there. So we have record of all the TTC meetings and what we talked about, and public engagement with a calendar of the public intercepts of the LRTAG meeting that we attended, and the survey that went out, and the town hall, and other notifications that we sent out, the feedback through the heat maps. This was the chapter you all have already seen, the existing conditions. This is back, I think, in the fall, going through what those existing conditions are. So just a flavor of what we have here. This chapter is formatted. The others are being formatted, but this is the text at least. And all that pulled together. So again, I just want to make sure, Philip, you and Scott have eyes on this before we officially release it to the TTC, but want to get this draft out to you all electronically, and then see if we have any feedback on it. Again, the content wise, this is all stuff that we've talked about, and we've seen it over and over again in the PowerPoints. I guess with this reshuffling of that downtown project, we can make those changes and might have to send it back out to you all as a technical committee through email and just have a review done this month over email and see, you know, how comfortable we can get with that. August is actually, it's a great month for this type of thing because the month starts after the first Thursday. So that pushes everything back in August. So the policy board doesn't meet till the end of August. You know, that said, I guess with the constrained budget, if we're going with the constrained budget is only projects that are funded, I feel a little more comfortable with that. If we were trying to include other projects and see the remainder of this, we would be, I would be pushing more for pushing back adoption to September if we could, to have a little more time to work through that. But with the approach, Rick, that you discussed, we can finish pulling together those project lists that we talked about. So anyway, that's my update on that. If we stick to the original schedule, we would have the TTC would meet again in August. Let me see here, August 13th, where you would provide a recommendation on the final plan to the policy board, which they would have their public hearing on the 20th. The plan technically is not due until October or September. We aimed for a date a couple of months ahead of when it was technically due. So Scott had mentioned that we do have some fallback options if we feel like we need to vet this a little bit more. Philip, that's all I had.
Any comments? Any questions? If not, are there any matters from the committee? Anyone?
Hey, this is Rick. Sure, each of the applicants got an email yesterday from Chad Tucker relative to the Smart Scale program. Extension has been granted to August 17th to submit your applications, and until October 30th for your resolutions to be submitted as part of your application and sent in. Of course, David and our recommendation to all of our applicants, if you have the ability to get your resolutions as we did today in the tech committee, get those done now, get those included in the apps. But you do have until October to get your board, city council, MPO, PDC resolutions in. But you do have until August 17th. Our L&D section in our district, and the same is holding true in the Salem district, L&D staff are working with the right-of-way utility agents now and prepping for all the cost estimates. It is anticipated that data was going to come out about the third week of July. We may push that a little bit more to give them some time. And the reason that I say this, and everybody's probably aware of this, Smart Scale Round 4 is a little different than what we've gone through previous. More expectations, more being requested of the applicants. And that's also included in the cost estimate and scheduling. So our L&D staff right now are going through a few extra steps in order to prep that information. We want to make sure all that's straight before we get that information out to everyone. So work with you, POC, myself or David in Salem, Carol or Mike Gray in Salem, and David and myself in Lynchburg. We'll get all that data out to you guys. Right now, you should be going into your applications, populating all your economic development data, tweaking your project description or any other elements that you have in your app. If you guys need any assistance with that, again, reach out to David or myself.
Any other matters from committee members? All right, if there's no objection, we'll adjourn until August 13th.
Sounds
good.
good.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, Will, you want to hold on?